Hi, and welcome back to Living from the Inside Out, Life in the Spiritual Lane. I'm Anne-Marie McElroan, and today I am very pleased to have with me Mara Vizzutti, longtime leadership coach, facilitator, and a student of the Brahma Kumaris for more than 15 years, and really an interesting person to chat with about what it means to be living a spiritual life. And Mara, welcome. So happy to have you with us here today.
Thanks, Anne Marie. Great to see you and be here.
So, Mara, let's start by talking a little bit about your spiritual practice, actually, so people can get a sense of what that looks like and how that can be blended into a daily life that has a lot of different elements in it.
For me, the reason that I got interested in meditation many years ago was because I was really searching for inner peace. And I know that that was inside of me. But I needed a mechanism, a way to reclaim that inner peace. And as Judy talked about in the earlier podcasts, we're so focused on externals, we're so focused on outside, that it really does, it really is like a new habit to stop and focus on the inside, but with a particular intention. And that is to go in and get reconnected to that source of peace that's already within. So for me, it's really reclaiming that, and that reclamation through meditation and through stopping at various times in the day, taking a deep breath, or just noticing when my mind is getting really speedy, is a way of bringing me back into the moment and getting back into that sense of stability, of presence in the moment. And that's how that experience is so fulfilling for the soul that after a while, one notices when you are not in that state of consciousness and you want to get back there. And so, obviously, being present, aware, calm, peaceful is a state that's very relaxing for the soul and also for others that we come into contact with. And that's how, that's how I kind of bring that into my work. It's changed, I believe, how I approach my work, because I try and bring that energy into the work that I do. And I think it has some impact.
So tell us a little bit more about that. Tell us about how it's changed your work, and then I'd love to also talk about how it's changed your life outside of work.
Well, from a work perspective, I guess I can speak about it a little bit from a coaching perspective, because that's a one-on-one conversation usually that I'm having with leaders. And for their world, it's a very busy world. There's lots of demands on them. And part of helping leaders be more present themselves is helping them to connect with their head, their heart, and their gut. It's like head, heart, gut coaching. Anyone that's done some coach training would recognize that. And so when we're very externally focused, we're usually not coherent in all three of those things. We're usually just in the head, typically. And so it's helpful for me to be in that energy of being in heart and head and being coherent myself, because then it helps also energetically slow down the thinking and slow down the sort of rushing energy that leaders have, because they have so many demands on them. I think facilitatively, it's really very much the same, because the more peaceful and stable I can be, the more present I can be, and aware, of my own state, being calm and a peaceful influence, then that will also influence the room, all the people in the room, and bring them present as well. So that's the short answer, I guess. I don't know, maybe that's the long answer. I don't know.
So that's great. So now I'm imagining, so that's work life where you're really focused on helping other people access what they need to be their best. What about in your personal life where situations may arise that can be challenging to you from a personal perspective? How has meditation helped? How has living in a spiritual lane helped with those situations?
Yeah, great question. I think going back to the awareness, I think when we choose to live more spiritually, we become much more self-aware of how we're thinking and how we're showing up in the world. And so when there are challenges, likely internal or external, likely I'm going to notice that in my thoughts or in my emotions. I'll be like, sensing frustration or irritation or something like that. So right away is the noticing that I've become separated from my peaceful state. That's the first step, is I notice, oh, and so I'll ask myself then, okay, what's going on right now, right now, right now? It's like, what's happening? Why are you feeling that? What's going on? So it's really the awareness, and then just stopping in the moment to inquire can happen very quickly within a few seconds. And then saying, okay, what would be a more light approach right here? What would love do here? What would be a softer, gentler approach right here? And so it's not that little glitches don't happen or big glitches don't happen. It's just, I think, dwelling in that place for a shorter amount of time and coming back to the more peaceful state more quickly is part of also what we teach in Raja Yoga meditation, hey, in our intro course. So yeah.
Do you have an example that you'd feel comfortable sharing, Mara? I'm just thinking, like, is there a way that we can think about a particular situation where you saw the difference writ large from these small moments, these small but significant changes that have taken place over the course of your meditation journey, your spiritual life, where something has happened and you saw the difference there, even for a brief shining moment? Because I know these differences are small and subtle and take place over a long period of time and can almost be imperceptible. And then sometimes they jump out at us. That may be too big of a request, but maybe something's popping to mind.
I think, yeah, I mean, gosh, there's so many examples, and then you're trying to think of one example. I think just a simple example would be a response that maybe is noticed by others, but is a bit surprising they're surprised by that response because they're not expecting that response. So just a simple example would be, let's say, you're living with someone, in my partner or whatever, at home, and you have certain agreements around the house about who does what, and you know part of that is, part of the agreements would be like, say, put things back, or I feel like I have a little bit higher need for cleanliness, say, or just tidiness, and my partner is awesome, so I've had to relax, she's had to step up, kind of thing. So in a situation where she's witnessing me picking up a lot of things and expecting the response to be, well, and sort of maybe me, being frustrated by that, not having that response, and just being calm about it, and then maybe discussing it, and then she'll be, oh, and then you'll notice that, or something like that. I don't know. There's just a lot of moments where, like, if I feel frustrated, I just think, well, why am I so frustrated right now? Why am I so frustrated? Why am I feeling this? And it's just because I'm trying to rush something or I'm trying to move things faster than they want to go. And I just sort of take a breath into it. I don't know. I don't know if that's a good enough example. I mean, there's bigger examples too, but
Well, what
I
I
don't know if
hear,
we have as much time to get
yeah,
into
yeah, no.
that.
Well, we'll have to get together again for sure, Mara. I feel like there's lots that we could talk about. I think that the thing that strikes me in the example that you just gave, and what I'm hearing from you, is that the focus is on your reactions, on how you're managing your internal world, as opposed to what happens when we focus on the external, which is there's a lot of focus on others. There's a lot of focus on situations. So it's quite a shift.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you're sharing there, Anne Marie, because it actually made me think of maybe one of the biggest shifts that living in a spiritual lane has changed for me is my focus on getting things done, which is a big part of life, getting things done on a work level, at a home level. There's always tasks to do. But the question is, who am I being while I'm doing things? How am I showing up while I'm doing things? And so the focus of attention in terms of importance is now more about who I'm being in the world and how I'm expressing that in a way that will create benefit for others, that has a higher priority in terms of my approach to things versus being in a rush to get all the boxes ticked off. Say if I'm in a meeting with someone or, at home, creating agreements with people, with family, with spouses, with people, that I volunteer with, however that goes, that there's more sacredness given to each soul and each relationship and the interactions between those people that is that feels more sacred than just getting the job done, and getting to the finish line. It's the journey with every
Wow.
soul that you're coming in contact with.
So, Mara, you mentioned recognizing, maybe even honoring the sacredness of relationships when you come into relationship. And I wonder how that shows up or what that looks like when you're in relationship with someone who may not have a spiritual lens or a spiritual take on things, maybe is really living a very externally focused life. How do you adjust how you're interacting? How do you show up?
Well, I think, gosh, I think this kind of goes back to what Judy was talking about in podcast number 2, when she was talking about um, knowing that you're a soul who's in a body. So we're souls in a body in this consciousness, and so is everyone else. And so you begin to see others as souls, less as bodies or clothes that they're wearing, or even personalities. And so it's a practice of seeing the soul in someone and knowing that regardless of how that soul may be showing up in the moment, that they are pure, loving, content. They have peace inside of them. They have these lovely qualities of the soul that we all have, and they just might be not as connected to them right now. And that's okay. So it just has a lot more to do with how I'm seeing the world. And I think this is what this living from the inside out and living the spiritual lane, as Judy spoke about, and you and Judy spoke about in the first 2 podcasts, is it doesn't really matter if anything out there changes, because actually how you're approaching and seeing the world is what's changing. And it's changing because when you recognize that you're a soul, that allows and gives for a lot more self-compassion and mercy to yourself for not always doing it perfectly, not always showing up in maybe the best way that you would have liked to, but you have an aim to be more loving, be more peaceful, be more stable, etc. And I think just by having that aim and working with it and practicing it, other people have, there's some influence there that other people pick up that energy from you. So I'm not sure if I've answered the question, but to your point earlier, it's really more about how it changes how we see the world and interact with the world. And ultimately, it becomes a more gentle, compassionate view of all souls in the world that are trying and doing the best they can to deal with their own challenges. And so they're showing up the best they can, dealing with their own challenges, as we all are.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's beautiful. As you were speaking and you talked about self-compassion, I just want to talk about, maybe we can end there because self-compassion is something that we talk about a lot. But I think it can be very challenging. And so how have you been helped in the sacredness of your own relationship, your relationship with yourself, as you've gone through this journey? Has that been a harder piece? Was that the piece you mastered first?
Wow. Well, the self-compassion piece is certainly a big piece of my journey because I was really good at being hard on myself and was able to take it to sort of gold medal standards of excellence in my past. And so that was something I really needed to work on and worked on, that it was possible to be in loving relationship with the self. And I wasn't sure it was going to be possible for me, but it became possible by continuing to practice soothing the soul, soothing one's own soul, and giving the soul loving messages and being in loving relationship with the soul. One is able to transform that. And really, honestly, how can we expect anyone to be peaceful if we're not peaceful? Like, we need to start with ourselves, of course. So the capacity to self-soothe the soul is very, very practical. You talked about the practicality of a spiritual life. It's very practical to be able to self-soothe, because then I'm not a burden to others. I'm not going to be a problem. I'm part of the solution of creating a more peaceful world. I think that's kind of part of it. Living from the inside out. Am I part of the solution of creating a more peaceful world here? Am I part of that solution, or am I, kind of creating more trouble in this world? It's already a little bit having its own challenges. So, yeah, it's a pretty accountable position to take, and really.
Well, I love that. And I'd love to take that topic up another time. How can I self-soothe and be part of the solution in creating a more peaceful world? So, yeah.
Mm.
Thanks so much, Mara. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Anne Marie. See you next time.